Hey everybody, it's your girl Nell and welcome back to the Blue Lotus Awakenings channel. Thank you so much for hanging out with me here today. I really appreciate you. I'm starting a challenge for this upcoming new service year. And I would like to reach at least 500 subscribers. So if you enjoy the content here provided on the Blue Lotus Awakenings channel, please feel free to become a subscriber to the channel. Thank you so much. So what we're going to talk about today is maybe part 2 of what we talked about earlier in another video about all of this so-called new light about disfellowshipping, which we have learned that they are no longer, Jehovah's Witnesses are no longer going to call what they do as far as excommunicating a member or kicking a member out of the organization. They're not going to call it disfellowshipping. What they're going to do is they're going to call it removed. Now, in our last video, I talked about how there's a footnote that says that Jehovah's Witnesses will no longer call what they do disfellowshipping, that they will be calling it remove. So I want to share that with you right now, real quick, so that I never want to give you information and not be able to back it up. I like to give out information where you can refer to it yourself. So the study article that we will be talking about today is in the August 2024 study article of the Watchtower magazine. It has the picture of the prodigal son on it. And the name of the article is called Help for Those Who Are Removed from the Congregation. And we will be heading to this, we will be going to the subheading, Remove the Wicked Person. And it is in paragraph 4. So I'm going to read that real quick. Well, I'm just really going to read where the name or the label changes and the footnote, okay? All right, so it starts like this. When an unrepentant wrongdoer is removed from the congregation, an announcement is made to inform the congregation that he is no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Then there is a hashtag or footnote notification, and the footnote reads, "We will no longer refer to such ones as being disfellowshipped. In harmony with Paul's words recorded at 1 Corinthians 5:13, we will now refer to them as being removed from the congregation." So this is just a little update to my previous video where I talked about how disfellowshipping, the name or the label of it will be changed to removed. So they won't be saying, Jehovah's Witnesses will not be disfellowshipping anyone. They will still, they will not be, I should say it like this. They will not be using the word disfellowship. Disfellowship, all of those words they're going to get rid of and just use the word removed. However, I would like to note that the practice of disfellowshipping will remain. And with Jehovah's Witnesses, there are 2 parts to being disfellowshipped. You're not only kicked out of the congregation or the organization itself. However, the second component of that is shunning, which means that everyone that you built a relationship with has the obligation and the responsibility to pretend like you don't exist anymore. And they are told that this is something that Jehovah wants you to do. This is something that men from the first century, the first congregation, Christian congregation ever formed, this is what they did, was disfellowship or remove people from the congregation. They only give you one incident. And see, this is something that Jehovah's Witnesses like to do. They like to say, oh, we don't celebrate birthdays because of this incident and this incident that happened in the Bible. And since it was sort of like associated with birthday celebrations, well, that's why we don't celebrate birthdays. That's their primary reason. Or they like to say because they like to create doctrine around one or two incidents that occurs in the Bible. And that's how they're doing this disfellowshipping thing. Disfellowshipping or removing from the congregation, none of this stuff the way that it is today in the 21st century. Back when Charles Taze Russell was in charge and Rutherford was in charge, and even up to the point where Brother Noah and for a minute, Brother France, disfellowshipping, that wasn't a thing. Jehovah's Witnesses didn't really do that, That's a modern day situation that happened like in the late 70s, early 80s, when people who are men who were a part of the organizational structure of the governing body saw that there was some inconsistencies in the way things were ran, and they made they made a case about it. They talked about it. They said, look, we need to make some changes if we're going to stay in line with what the Bible says. And because they were outnumbered in that belief system, because when these men decided to tell the truth about the truth to the people who claimed that they know the truth, even though they were parts of the upper echelon of the organization, and because they had, it didn't matter that they were, up here with the governing body or on the governing body at the time, they were talking about facts about how the truth is not really being given to the layman Jehovah's Witnesses as the truth, and when this happened, these men were outnumbered, and the governing body got rid of them. And because the governing body at the time knew that what these men were talking about was the truth, and that the things that they were saying, should be addressed, it should be looked into, and it should be rectified with the general body of Jehovah's Witnesses. Because they decided to turn their head, bury their head in the sin about it, and they didn't want to acknowledge it, what they did was they basically began to shun these men. So they kicked them out of the New York headquarters, okay? Sent them, to wherever, congregations, in the United States, sent them away, okay, and shunned them. So these men, they were, they spent their entire adulthood life in this organization. They didn't have any career outside of it. All of their income, everything that they were, livelihood, all that stuff was wrapped up in the organization. So when they decided that they were going to come out and say, well, you know what, this is not right, this is not right, this is not right, presented it to the governing body itself and other members of the upper echelon and at the Watchtower Bible Tract Society, they were kicked out. They were forced out of New York, okay? And they were shunned from the people who were part of that organizational structure. So when it came down to the congregations that they eventually went to, the word was that, for them to make preparations to formally kick them out of the organization and to keep them from not talking and spreading the facts about what they had discovered and what they knew to be true, then that is when the shunning policy came in. See, remember, Jehovah's Witnesses weren't always the organization. They kicked you out if they had to. Because when I was coming up, I didn't really know any disfellowship people. The disfellowshipping and the shunning situation, that didn't really start happening until the 80s. That's when people started to get disfellowship, and then it came down to the fact that you couldn't speak to them anymore. You had to pretend like they were dead. That started happening in the 80s. So this whole really thing of disfellowshipping and shunning, this is a fairly new thing to Jehovah's Witnesses. It's fairly new. And the reason why it happened because of a small select group of men who were in the organization for a very, very long time. And they began to discover that some of the organizational practices, some of the doctrines that Jehovah's Witnesses had was not Bible-based, and that it was wrong. And in many instances, they were also misogynistic and racist. And so to keep the organization itself, to keep layman Jehovah's Witnesses from hearing the truth about the truth, that's when this shunning stuff came in at, where you had to treat disfellowship people as if they were dead or diseased. That's where this whole thing comes from. It comes from, this whole practice comes from what I just told you. This was only meant for a select group of people, but to make it not seem as if it was meant for those guys, they made it like as a general rule. So if you were caught speaking to those small group of brothers who are men who were kicked out of the organization, if you were caught speaking to them about anything, then you were susceptible to being disfellowshipped from being one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Okay, so when you hear the conversations going on about disfellowshipping, removal, shunning, whatever you want to call it, that's really what it's about. Okay. And so when you get into these 5 articles about, disfellowshipping, sinners, wickedness, repentance, all this other stuff that has to do with nothing at all, it really comes down to the fact that Jehovah's Witnesses, they really don't care about, you sinning. They don't care about that because we're all basically sinners. But what they don't want to happen is they don't want you talking to people who they call apostates. Okay? Because when you disfellowship or remove someone from the congregation for, let's say, like I'll just put myself in there. You removed me from the congregation because I made some bad choices with my morality. Okay, my morality was slipping, and so I was disfellowshipped. What I needed was not for you to disfellowship me or to remove me from the congregation, but if you want to restrict me and say, well, you can no longer go out in the ministry and be a real minister anymore, Nell, because of what you did, I can understand that. Do that. If you find out that I'm doing, I'm still not adhering to the laws and the tenets of your religion, okay, remove me. But why would you tell my family that they can't speak to me? Why would you tell anyone else that? Oh, you don't speak to them? Do Jehovah's Witnesses really believe that their members are that impressionable? Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Because in almost every talk that you'll probably hear at the convention or wherever, you're going to hear Jehovah's Witnesses tell the layman Jehovah's Witness, you got to be careful with the internet. You got to be careful with social media. You got to be careful about this. Don't read that. Don't do that. Only stick to jw.org and JW Broadcasting and all this other stuff. And see, here's the thing. We as a society, we're inundated with information every day. We as a society have to sift through information, misinformation, disinformation, falsehoods, lies. We have to do that every day. Some of us are able to are more perceptive than others, but it's something that we do every day. So why do Jehovah's Witnesses come up to tell their people, well, you know what, when we kick so-and-so out of the organization, we don't want you to talk to them either or have any contact with them either, because should that not be a personal decision that you make, or whether or not who you want to associate with, who you want to break bread with, who you want to enter into your home? Shouldn't that be a decision that you make, because you are an adult and you know right from wrong, and you're not the type of person that you are easily misled or run amok or bamboozled. And if you are, that's your bad. That's on you. But why would Jehovah's Witnesses just make a blanket statement to their laymen and tell them, when we remove someone from the congregation or disfellowship someone from the congregation, well, hey, boom, guess what? Don't talk to them. Treat them like they're nothing. Don't even pretend like they don't exist. Oh, by the way, do your children like that, your mother like that, your father like that. Do your wife like that if you must, or your husband. Don't talk to them about spiritual things, whatever that means. See, there's an issue with this whole disfellowshipping thing. It's because if you want to, as I said before, if you have an organization and you have people in your organization who refuse to follow your rules and regulations, yes, you reserve the right to kick them to the curb. But once they hit the curb, why would you tell the people who remain in the fold, look, if you run into these people that we kicked out of the organization, treat them as if they are diseased and you don't want to have anything to do with them, even if that person is your own child? Why is that necessary? And this is where Jehovah's Witnesses fuck it up at. This is why there are European countries who are suing them and removing their status, removing Jehovah's Witnesses' legal status and registration from their countries, because Jehovah's Witnesses not only do this to adults, they do this to their children, which is what we're going to talk about right now. Jehovah's Witnesses had a procedure where even children were not exempt from feeling the raft of disfellowshipping, or what they call removed. Children went through it as well. I knew kids who were disfellowshipped. When I became an adult, a former friend of mine's daughter became disfellowshipped. I remember how the children felt. I remember being a child and watching other people who had been disfellowshipped, who were children or minors like myself. I remember how they reacted and how they felt. And then I got a chance to see as an adult what a parent goes through when their minor child is disfellowshipped. So now we have three things that has happened in the Jehovah's Witness organization. First of all, they stopped calling what they do, the practice of excommunication, they've stopped calling it disfellowshipping. They now call it removed. Okay. Another thing Jehovah's Witnesses stopped doing is they stopped calling the group of men that they put together to judge people in the congregation that commit some type of sin, or serious sin is what they call it. They stopped calling those groups of men judicial committees, because according to them, these groups of men do more than just judge. I don't know what else did they do, but it seems to me that all they do is judge. Okay, because they don't have any credentials to be able to offer anybody any type of counseling. They don't have any credentials to help somebody, psychologically. They're not trained therapists or any of those things. So what they do is they basically judge you. But for legal purposes, they got rid of judicial. So now they just call it a committee. And the next thing that they've done is they have stopped disfellowshipping children. In The let me see. I believe it's study article 34. It is. It's study article 34 of that same August 2024 issue of the study edition of the Watchtower, under the title Responding to Sin with Love and Mercy. If you go all the way to paragraph 18 under the heading Reproof before all onlookers, paragraph 18 is where the new light hits about disfellowshipping minors and how what the changes are. Now, mind you, the reason why Jehovah's Witnesses are changing their viewpoint on disfellowshipping children is because of the Norway decision. The decision in Norway. And one of the reasons, well, the main reason why Jehovah's Witnesses lost their license or their registration as a religious group or entity in Norway is because they were disfellowshipping children, and they were called out. Jehovah's Witnesses were called out on it because the country of Norway believes that to be a form of CA or child abuse. Child neglect. So let's get into it. I'm just going to read you. I'm going to read you the paragraph so we can discuss it. All right. What about baptized minors, those under 18 years of age who engage in serious wrongdoing? The body of elders were arranged for 2 elders to meet with the minor and his Christian parents. Okay. And the footnote for that is what is said about parents also applies to legal guardians or others who have parental responsibility for a minor. The elders will find out what steps the parents have already taken to help their child come to repentance. If the minor has a good attitude and the parents are reaching him, the 2 elders might decide that it is not necessary to take the matter any further. After all, it is the parents' God-given responsibility to provide loving correction to their children. The elders will thereafter occasionally check with the parents to make sure that the minor is getting the help he needs. However, what if a baptized minor unrepentantly persists in a wrong course? In that case, a committee of elders will meet with him along with his Christian parents. So what is this saying? That paragraph is essentially saying that children will not be disfellowshipped or removed from the congregation any longer. Another thing it's saying is that when they meet, when a parent, and this is, I'm just going to be honest with you, what happens is that a parent discovers that their child has done something that could be a disfellowshipping matter or a case for removal, and the parents would rat on their children to the elders, and then the elders would come together and get a meeting together, and then they will privately have a meeting with the child so that they get all the information from the child, not the parents, but they get all this information from the child. And it could be very intimate information as well. They give all this information to the elders, the child does, without parents being in the room, which is not good. As we know from a legal perspective, that is not good either, right? Everyone deserves to have, a minor deserves to have their parent or their guardian with them and a lawyer or so when they are being questioned, because they are what? They are minors, they are underage as specified by the law. So now Jehovah's Witnesses have stopped that practice. They're saying that if a parent snitch on their child and come to them, they're going to put together this committee, not judicial committee, and they're going to have a conversation with the parent or the child in front of the parent. And then they're going to talk to the child, and I guess they're going to show the child what the child fucked up, how they fucked up, why they fucked up, and what they can do to not fuck it up again. And then they're going to say, okay, all right, parents, it's on you. What are you're going to have to handle this. And so the parents say, okay, we're going to deal with Johnny or Teresa, right? And then the elders, may come back and check on Johnny and Teresa through the parents occasionally. But basically, it's back on the parents. And then, like it says, what if the child continues to do whatever the hell they want to do? Then it says that the committee of elders will continue to meet with the child and the parents. So usually when I was a teenager in the 80s, kids would get disfellowship flat out. Yes, kids would get disfellowship too. And I would be at school, not knowing quite what to do, acting like I couldn't talk to this person, even though this person was in my class. I knew they were disfellowship, so I couldn't talk to them. I don't know what they did. I heard the rumors, but I couldn't talk to them. Did I want to talk to them? Yeah. Who wouldn't? What you do? But it's pretty harsh treatment to be disfellowship, and your parents can't talk. Your parents really can't associate with you. Your friends can't talk to you anymore. I had a friend that was, it was two things. For children who were baptized, they could get disfellowship. Oh, for children who were not baptized, they were disassociated. Yes. So if you were a child, a minor, and you fucked up, and the elders talked to you and found out where you fucked up at, told you how you fucked up and why you fucked up, you, based on, they would say based on your attitude or how bad you fucked up, then you could get disassociated. And so I knew people who had gotten disassociated, which is basically the same thing as disfellowshipping in the shunning aspect of it, because you can't talk to them. Eventually, they got rid of that practice as well of disassociating somebody, a young person. They got rid of that sometime in the 90s, but I had friends who had gotten disassociated, and that was a trip too. Why is this a big thing? Because parents let me tell you this real quick too about this being disfellowship. How about, I knew what it was like, or what it seemed like to be a child, and I see a friend who is baptized get disfellowship. I could see the fallout from that, from the child's point of view. But parents who had children to get disfellowship, that's a whole different story too. I had a former friend in a congregation I was in back in Michigan whose daughter was disfellowship. I believe she was about 15 years old. And our field service one day, and I had a chance to, she was a friend, and so that's what you do. You want to check in on your friends, and her daughter had been disfellowship. So, we made a day to go out in the field ministry together one Saturday, and then go to lunch. And so I asked her, I said, hey, how's things going now that, so-and-so is now disfellowship? How's it going in your home? And she told me it was rough. I was like, really? What's going on? She said, well, now that, so-and-so is disfellowship, I can't take her grocery shopping with me. We can't go to the mall together, go shopping anymore. We can't go to the movies anymore as a family. We can't go out to restaurants anymore as a family. When it comes to family trips, we're not going to be able to do that anymore because she's disfellowship, and the Bible says that I can't associate with her. I was like, wow. She said, when it come to family, when it come down time for dinner, you know, she can't eat with us because the Bible says I can't eat with her. School shopping is getting ready to happen. So I'm not going to really be able to, do the things that we used to do for school shopping. I'm just going to have to give her, her the allowance so she can go out and get what she got to get for school, because I can't really be associating with her like that, having doing recreational things with her in that manner. And I just remember listening to her and saying, that sounds so dumb and pathetic that we would let an entire organization tell us how we can treat our child, how to have a relationship with our child, even though our child may have fucked up. And see, this goes into the whole thing of and how I feel so strongly about not allowing my children to get baptized before the age of 18. I felt very strongly about that. And the reason why is because kids mess up. They're young. We know now through science, biology, that a child's brain is not fully formed until the year 25. So why would we place such a weighty decision and allow our child to make such a big decision, a life decision as such as this, getting baptized at such an early age? That's like, giving your 12-year-old permission to get married, or 16-year-old permission to get married. What do they know about life? They don't know anything. And what we know about being a Jehovah's Witness, what could possibly happen is we'll place our own selves in a situation where when our child decides or makes a decision that goes contrary to the organization, then we'll find ourselves in a situation where we're going to have to treat them like they don't exist. We're going to have to shun them. So it's because of this practice right here that different European companies are revisiting Jehovah's Witnesses and their doctrine and how they treat people in their organization. Primarily children, because this is a form of child abuse. When I sit back and I listen, I remember what my former friend told me. What she was saying to me was tantamount to emotional child abuse and also child neglect. Because even though she and her husband were still taking care of their child, the child still had a roof over their head, still had food to eat, still had clothes on her back, but it was the emotionality of it all that is tantamount to child abuse. Child abuse doesn't necessarily have to be physical. It can even be emotional and mental as well. So that is also part of the new light of Jehovah's Witnesses, that they're no longer going to disfellowship young people out of the organization. So I'm guessing that if a young person is, when they turn 18, then I'm guessing that the elders are going to start talking to the parents and letting the parents know that if your child is still doing what they were doing at 17.5, then what you need to do as a good Jehovah's Witness parent, then you need to kick them out. Because if you don't kick them out, then we're going to have to mark you. Oops. Another new light. We don't mark, Jehovah's Witnesses don't mark people anymore. So what they mean is that they're just going to look at you sideways. And if you're a man and you're the head of your household, you won't be carrying a mic anymore. Or you won't be asked to go watch the cars in the parking lot. You won't be able to give any talks from the platform. You won't be handing out any literature, invitations, any stuff behind the book counter anymore. Do they even have books behind the book counter anymore? Who knows? Calendars. That's what happens if a brother decides that he's not going to. I'm sure that's what's going to happen if a family decides that when their child turns 18 years of age, that they're not going to kick their child out if they've already had a pattern or a history of serious wrongdoing. I'm almost positive about that. Somebody gonna pay. So that is all of the new light. This August 2024 article, the Watchtower study article, is just going to be, another exercise in ridiculousness on the part of Jehovah's Witnesses as usual. Just another taste of it. Just another taste. And Jehovah's Witnesses have long said, Anthony Morris in particular, that Jehovah's Witnesses are never going to stop practicing disfellowshipping. They're never going to change. Well, it seems that with these 5 articles, they're trying to do a little changing, but Anthony Morris was correct. They're not going to change. As long as there are people out here that's talking about or telling the truth about the truth, they can't afford to do so. They can't afford to get rid of the practice of disfellowshipping or removal or whatever they want to call it. They can't afford to get rid of it, especially in the iteration that is in today with the shunning component attached to it. They can't afford to do that. And because that it is that in that way, because it is, because they've done it in this manner, this is the reason why, among others, why Jehovah's Witnesses are bleeding members. That's why the membership rolls are going down, and that's why people are leaving. And this is also one of the reasons why European countries are taking a second look at Jehovah's Witnesses, because their practices, even though they want to claim that they are in line with the Bible, they are not. They really aren't. These are just some made up rules to keep people who have found out the truth about the truth from spreading the truth about the truth to the layman Jehovah's Witnesses. The people up in Warwick or Bethel, whatever they're calling it these days, they don't want layman Jehovah's Witnesses to awaken. Because if they awaken, then their monies are going to start drying up. That continuous flow of money each year will begin to dry up. And they don't want that. Because remember, Jehovah's Witnesses are 2 different components. Jehovah's Witnesses, the religion, and Jehovah's Witnesses, the Fortune 500 corporation or business. It's 2 separate arms of Jehovah's Witnesses. Big business, the religion. And Jehovah's Witnesses, the layman Jehovah's Witnesses, know nothing about the business entity of Jehovah's Witnesses. They don't know that. And Jehovah's Witnesses, the corporate, the Fortune 500 entity, they want to keep it like that. So that's why they'll tell you, oh, this is new light, when it has nothing to do with new light. It has everything to do with business. So thank you so much for watching this video today and spending time with me today here in the tiny studio. Thank you so much. Like I said, I have a 500 subscriber challenge going on. I'm hoping to reach to reach a 500 subscribers by the beginning of the new service year. The beginning of September. Please do your share and help me reach this goal by subscribing and liking this video. Thank you so much for hanging out with me again. And if you enjoyed this video, please like. Thank you and have a great day.